Welcome, everyone. I am Brian Bolton. I'm a professor of finance at UL Lafayette. Thank you for joining us for session 10 in our Money Matters UL System Financial Wellness Series for this summer, 2023. Today's session is on financial planning for veterans. And let me start with full disclosure. I am not a veteran for a variety of reasons, I suppose. And so a lot of what I'm going to talk about today, I do not have firsthand experience with, but I do have secondhand experience. I've done a number of these programs, and I don't know if secondhand experience is good enough. I certainly not. But I've done a number of programs like this. This summer, I'm doing an entrepreneurship and finance program with our Veterans Upward Bound program in Lafayette. And be honest, more from the participants in those sessions than from me. I have no doubt about that. And so I've tried to bring some of that into this. But of course, I don't have your experience. I don't have your lived experience. And so many of the ideas, the tips that I'm going to cover, you probably certainly have more firsthand experience with than I do. So that's my caveat. Hopefully there is something in here that's helpful, give you some guidance or perspective, either in financial planning or navigating the veteran system. I'm in a hotel room. There's a busy intersection outside my room. I'm on the 5th floor, but we can hear everything. So I apologize if that disrupts us. But let's go ahead and get started. That's me, Brian Bolton. Feel free to reach out to me after this session for any questions or comments. If I say things that maybe are inaccurate or you want to amplify or you want to improve, feel free to reach out to me. Or if you want to sit down for a one-on-one consultation, we can do that over Zoom. We can do that in person. Reach out to me. Please do. I've set up a website, business.louisiana.edu/finances-personal. Where it's really just a repository or a library with presentations like this. There's 3 books on personal finance posted there you can download, number of calculators, other worksheets, just a variety of resources, but feel free to check that out. And you'll notice the tagline is finances personal. That's something we'll talk about through this session. Personal finance is very personal. And I think for veterans, it gets very personal pretty quick, but there's also big infrastructure and systems that maybe are set up that may benefit most veterans in unique ways. This is session 10 in our 15-part series of the summer. There we are. There is my personal advent calendar counting down. We've got 5 more after this. We'll do financial planning for when retirement is close. You're 5 to 7 years out, so it's not happening in the next year, but it's also close enough to be tangible. We'll do that tomorrow, same time, 3 p.m. Central. And then we'we'll get back to some entrepreneurship, some saving, some investing, and then some navigating the economy stuff that we'll conclude with. When we planned that navigating the impacts of inflation and turbulent economic times, everyone was predicting us heading into a recession. Now here we are on July 18th, and the people that were making those predictions are very quiet right now. And it does not look like we're headed for a recession. Still may, but stock markets had 6 or 7 great days in a row. Inflation's at 3% down from 9.1. And so all the sky is falling predictions from 3 or 4 months ago, the sky may still be cloudy for many people, but does not appear to be falling. But we'll still go through that session and talk about turbulence, talk about uncertainty, if not negative turbulence. So that's the plan. Let's get started with veterans. And I think 3 things that I've learned from many of you. When I say you, I mean veterans. 3 big reasons financial planning is really important. One, you have more unique benefits, more unique opportunities than civilians. You have different cash flow streams, whether it's retirement or pension or potentially disability, and unique benefits from savings opportunities, discounted loan rates, and so forth. but having may lead to more complexity. These are benefits. You want to make sure you're taking advantage of benefits. Secondly, while you are active duty, while you're active service, many of your financial issues may have been taken care of for you, and so now that you're either no longer active duty or whatever your classification may be, you're probably taking care of things entirely on your own, from potentially retirement planning to investing, insurance, and so forth. And so just learning how to navigate those processes can be difficult. You want to make sure you know what you're doing. And the similar issue is just that transition from active duty to civilian or veteran. Perhaps veterans are never become truly civilians. So I apologize if that's inaccurate, but that transition may not be an easy one for whatever issue, whether it's physical health, whether it's relationships. Those transitions can always be challenging. And if money is an added challenge, then everything gets compounded. And so we want to smooth the money part and allow you to focus on potentially more pressing priorities and challenges. So those are the three priorities, three reasons. What we're really trying to do in these sessions is achieve some level of happiness, fulfillment, satisfaction, peace of mind, whatever that means. And we do that by combining short-term and long-term goals. We do that by combining family and financial needs, education, business, whatever else your needs and priorities may be. That's the model that we're trying to get to in all of these sessions, and it's constantly trade-off. Before we get into, I've got a list of 10 tips for veterans. Before we get into that, three straightforward opening morals. One that I mentioned: personal finance is personal. It's about you. It's not about anyone else. You have to make it about you, your values, your goals. As a veteran, again, as I mentioned earlier, you may have unique benefits and processes to help you, but you still want to make it about you. Now that you're not active duty anymore, now that you're a veteran, you focus on yourself, your family, your own business interests, your own goals. So do that. Make it about yourself, and let the finances follow and work for you. Because finance is personal, it's very difficult for me to give advice that applies to everyone, but there's one piece of advice that applies to just about everyone, and that is save. The more you can save, the more you can manage your budget, expense, the more opportunities you have. That's true for veterans, it's true for civilians, it's true for everyone. If the goal in one way is to build some wealth, whatever that means to you, whether that's financial wealth, whether that's personal, religious, family, relationship wealth, we start with savings. Once we have some savings, have some excess cash flow that we can invest, the more we can invest, the more ownership we have, whether that ownership is stocks and bonds and financial markets, or whether it's a home, a business, or maybe it's just ownership of our time. That's where real wealth comes from. That's the model we're trying to build. And as we think about this and put this in context for veterans, 90% of financial planning for veterans is the same as financial planning for civilians would be. The content, the processes, the math, certainly, they're identical. But what we're going to try to focus on today, a little bit, is that 10% difference. The unique opportunities, unique words of caution, unique transitions that civilians have never had to make, the veterans have to make. And we want to make sure that that transition is as smooth, and not just smooth, but beneficial as possible. And so we'll touch on kind of both of those. I'll try to spin it towards the 10% that's unique, but keep in mind, I really want to emphasize that financial planning for veterans is very much just financial planning. And the 10% we want to add on to improve opportunities and benefits for veterans. This is my model for everything we do in financial planning. We start with your values, dreams, and goals. What do you want to do? What do you want to achieve for your family, for your career, for your education? We look at where you are today. What's your current situation? And the green is kind of point A, the blue is point B. How do you get from point A to point B? We do that by building a personal financial plan. And we'll talk about some of these, half of these issues, from investing to budgeting, debt, taxes, and so forth. But that personal financial plan you create for yourself. And it all depends on your goals and where you want to get. I've introduced these 7 goals that I think just about everyone can attack and try to focus on. Once every 3 months, track your budget, track your spending, identify your discretionary spending, your wants, identify your non-discretionary, your needs. And then in the next 3 months, try to find some ways to decrease your wants, your spending on wants, not just like your wants, but your spending on wants. Make a plan to pay off your debt over the next 6 months. Open multiple savings accounts. We'll talk about that in a session next week. Identify your goals and then open those accounts for those goals. Assuming one of your goals is retirement, open an IRA or Roth IRA. IRA stands for individual retirement account. Most of us can open those on our own and begin building ownership and wealth towards our retirement with unique tax benefits that you can't get from a savings account or a brokerage account. When we track our expenses, we identify our non-discretionary expenses, our needs, such as rent, mortgage, insurance, food, healthcare. What if we lose our job? What if there's a surprise? What if we have an emergency? And so within the next 2 years, we should all try to build an emergency account, emergency fund that has 3 to 6 months of non-discretionary expenses in it. And that gives you that peace of mind that if there is an emergency, whether it's losing your job or just the air conditioning not working during the summer heat, you have the means to make good for a little while with that, whether it's fixing your thing or living off savings while you find a new job. And then within 3 years of today, whether it's graduation or just say today, try to eliminate all your bad debt. Identify what your bad debt is and make a plan to repay it. I wanted to introduce this in a session for financial planning for veterans. My experience, veterans love KPIs. They love tangible goals. And by having a plan, a goal that we can work towards, you can kind of work backwards, reverse engineer and say, okay, how do I do that? And some of these things just take action. So opening an IRA or Roth IRA, we can do that in 15 minutes. As soon as this, you can do this during this session. You can have your IRA open by the end of this video. Other things like building an emergency fund, that takes time and effort. But if you reverse engineer, you back up to where we are today, you can think about how you get there. And so these are 7 goals that just about everyone can do, including veterans. I think there's one more that veterans can focus on. Sit down and do an inventory, and sitting down may mean for a weekend or a week. Do an inventory of all of your unique benefits. Identify all of your military benefits, such as what education benefits you may have, insurance benefits and discounts, interest rates on mortgages, car loans, credit cards. You have unique benefits that civilians do not. And sometimes they can be hard to identify and find them, but they exist. And sometimes, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, the VA, is probably the first place to contact. They're going to have the most comprehensive inventory of benefits available to you. But if they cannot serve you directly, then they can put you in touch with other organizations. And by other organizations, I mean, whether that's insurance companies, private companies, or credit unions or whatever, they can put you in touch with them. They can also talk to you about eligibility. Many of the benefits that I'm referring to in this session, many of these benefits have different levels of qualification, potentially depending on which branch of the military you served or how long you served. You can become eligible for different benefits, or if you only serve for a short period of time, you may not be eligible for certain benefits. The VA can help you figure that out. And so that's the place to start. But a great use of a weekend or a week, or it shouldn't take a week, but it may take several days of research and diligence. Identify what your military benefits are. And always go through official organizations. The VA is the place to start, but going through other official organizations. And by official, whether that's a .gov website or if it's a .com, a private entity, make sure that you can do some research on their website or their business, or if you can go to their business in person. Why? Because you have unique benefits, which means you can become a unique target for scams or other schemes. There's way too much fraud with respect to military benefits. When I say fraud, I mean from outsiders, scam artists taking away benefits from veterans. And always go through the official organization. Do not respond to a text or an email, or if you get something in the mail. Be cautious, be very suspicious. You may get something from the VA or from official organizations in the mail or an email, but be careful about clicking on those emails or responding directly, and kind of start from scratch and go do your own research to make sure you are dealing directly with the benefactors and the organizations that can process. And certainly don't give out any personal information until you know whom you're dealing with, and know kind of what you're getting or signing up for. In most cases, the VA is going to already have all of your personal information, and you should not need to continually re-provide it. But many of these processes are parallel or not consolidated in one with one entity, and so you may have to provide your personal information to different organizations. Just be very, very careful about who you're dealing with. When we talk about financial planning, I gave you the tree of kind of point A to point B. There are three priorities, three levels of priorities for everyone in financial planning. Insurance, short-term and long-term. Priority one on the left, risk management of personal property and liability risk. Make sure you've got the insurance you need. Priority two, short-term savings and debt management. Make sure you have an emergency fund. Make sure your debt expenses are comfortably within a comfort zone relative to what your income is. And then also begin thinking about long-term savings and investments. As a veteran, your window, your time period to retirement may be shorter than many of the students that I'm dealing with in these sessions. And that's just information, right? That's just information you have to know. And if you have a 20-year window to retirement, your plans may be different than if you have a 40-year. Not better, not worse, just different. And understanding that, what your long-term investment plans are, as a priority, maybe it becomes a higher priority, right? It's still the third priority, but you maybe want to be spending equal time with the short-term and the long-term as you get closer to retirement. I mentioned this because, again, earlier I mentioned that 90% of financial planning for veterans is the same as financial planning for civilians. And this is a table that I introduced to everyone. And for veterans, just to appreciate these three priorities, it's every bit as important as it is for anyone else. But then from here, I want to get into some potentially specific tips. 10 tips. Hopefully these apply to veterans. Some of these do. I think, well, they all do. Hopefully, some of these are unique and helpful. Prepare a budget. Potentially, it's maybe been a while since you've done a budget. Maybe you've never done a budget. Identify all of your expenses. Right? For most of us, we have one or two sources of income, but we have lots and lots of expenses. So identify all of your expenses, both non-discretionary and discretionary. Non-discretionary means needs, essentials. And discretionary means wants, such as dining out, such as vacation, maybe entertainment. Some people would argue that entertainment is a need and essential. It's okay. But it's up to you. You get to classify these however you want, but do that budget. And we start with a budget because then everything else flows from that, whether it's saving, whether it's debt management. Think about your values, your behaviors, and goals, and make sure that your budget is aligned with your values. goals. You sit down and you do this research on your, think about how you can reduce the expenses. Reducing the expenses is what leads to things, and savings is what leads to ownership and wealth. Number two, as I said earlier, within the next 6 months, prepare an inventory of all the financial benefits available to you. Not just financial, but there can be other benefits. Some of these you may know, they may be second nature to you. Some of these you may be less familiar with, but unique education benefits. The GI Bill is still the gold standard for providing the education benefits for veterans. There are 2 or 3 versions of the GI Bill now, slightly different than it was 70 years ago. But that's still the foundation for the benefits today, and discounted education and support. Healthcare, most of veterans' healthcare is going to start with the VA, the Veterans Administration, but there may be disability, relatively new TRICARE program that links and connects different healthcare resources. I'll return to healthcare in a couple of slides because it's a little more convoluted and certainly very important. Loan benefits, whether it's from the VA or didn't mention it here, but lots and lots of credit unions provide unique benefits to veterans. Service Members Group Life Insurance Program provides life insurance. One thing that I'm going to mention, certainly when I get to healthcare, and I think it applies to life insurance and retirement as well. Sometimes while you have great benefits, great programs that provide benefits, sometimes the dollar amounts can be pretty low. So some of the reports I've heard from Service Members Group Life Insurance, many of the veterans I've talked to have secondary insurance too, because the $50,000 or $100,000 that they have through the Service Members Group plan is not adequate for their needs should they pass on and their family need their income. So, and this will be, I think, a theme I repeat throughout tonight. While you have great benefits, do your own research, make sure those benefits are adequate, and potentially think about buying or obtaining either supplemental coverage in any of these aspects or replacing this coverage with your own unique private coverage. So as I said, health insurance, make sure you've got all you need. The VA may provide the best coverage for you and your family, but it may not. It may not give you the options that you want in Louisiana or Texas or wherever home is for you right now. And in that case, you may need private coverage either through your current job, or you may need to go on the private market and pay $400, $500, $600, $700 a month for the best coverage for you. If you use this private coverage, it may not come with government discounts, while the VA coverage typically would. But the key is do your research. Make sure you know what you're getting. Make sure you do not assume that you only have one choice and that one choice is best for you and your family. Your family situation may be maybe larger, more complex than it was when you were at active duty. And you may, the coverage that you had or when you first got out of the military may not be adequate for you now. And so make sure you do the research, make sure you get the healthcare coverage that you need. It's a common story that I've heard that many veterans initially start out with the VA coverage, but then transition to private coverage either through work or elsewhere as their needs change. Many of my veterans that I've worked with in this part of the program that I'm doing this summer, they're entrepreneurs. They have side hustles. And when I say hobby and side hustle, I don't necessarily mean a product. You can be service, you can be consulting. Many of the veterans I've talked to are providing enormously valuable consulting services, either back to the defense industry, contractors, to operation services in Louisiana, or a number of doing nonprofit type work too. If you have these hobbies that could be considered a business, try to create a legal business entity. Creating an LLC, a limited liability company, or a corporation will take you about 2 hours and cost between $200 and $500, depending on the industry that you're in. but that offer will save you from enormous potential liability in the future. What do I mean? If you do not incorporate or register your business with the state, that's really all you're doing. In Louisiana, it's www.gobiz.com, GEAUX, biz, of course. And that is the Secretary of State where we register all businesses. If you do not register a business and you are receiving income for business-related activities, whether service or a product, you have personal liability for whatever that business does. So if that business creates a problem, either gives bad advice or you serve spoiled sushi and customers get sick, they can sue the business, but they can also sue you. And by creating an LLC or corporation, you create a separation between personal liability and business liability. And having that legal shell separate from your own personal liability will save you enormous potential liability in the future. And it'll also open you up for grants. It'll open you up for loans. It'll open you up for more official business operations should you really want to turn that hobby or side hustle into a full-fledged business. If you need help on that, I can help you. In Lafayette, we have the Louisiana Entrepreneurship and Economic Development Center, the LEAD Center that Jeff Stewart runs in Lafayette in partnership with a bunch of other economic development, LEDA and others in Lafayette. So we can help you, but it's a couple hours of work that'll save you a ton of headaches. Speaking of spending a little money that'll save some headaches, prepare a last will and testament. And while you're at it, prepare a living will. Last will and testament is what happens to all of your assets when you die. Living will is what decisions are made, who gets to make those decisions. For medical decisions, what medical decisions are made, and who gets to make those medical decisions on your behalf during life. Again, either of these will cost about $300, starting point $300 if you want to do it online. A lot of people do it online, trustandwills.com or a number of others. I forgot the one that I've used. The online service, you can start at $200 or $300. You get it registered, you get it done. Could go as high as a couple $1,000s if you sit down with a local attorney and really get kind of more granular, more specific with your wishes. But the piece of be priceless. And I include this session for veterans as we talk, kind of lead in that last point, the final point about beneficiaries. Because you do have unique benefits, you have unique flows. You want to make sure those are protected. And so some of the cash flows will cease if you die, but some of the assets, some of the benefits, you may be entitled to lump sum payments, or you may have accounts that can be assigned to beneficiaries. So for all of your accounts, all of your benefits, make sure you have an assigned beneficiary for benefits, policies, and accounts. What type of accounts and policies allow you to have beneficiaries? Life insurance, retirement automatically have beneficiaries. Savings accounts and investment accounts do not, but you can include that in the will. And then a number may or may not have designated beneficiaries. The benefit of a beneficiary is the legal transfer of those assets from you to whomever you want to receive them is automatic when you die. There's no will required. We love beneficiaries. We love beneficiary designations because that transfer is automatic. Again, you have unique benefits. Make sure those are protected. Make sure they are assigned to the people you want to receive them. Check your credit report. Check your credit score. Your life, your adult life, has probably not been as smooth and consistent as many civilians. When I say smooth and consistent, I mean that in a variety of ways, but in this case, I mean from a consumer reports kind of way. Maybe you get deployed, maybe you've got multiple deployments, multiple residencies each year, whether that's military bases or private residences. What they're looking, credit histories are designed to report smooth and consistent stories. And your story may be anything but smooth and consistent. The story of you being a consumer, the story of you being a borrower, the story of you being a saver. And if you haven't, it's possible that your credit report penalizes you for this simply because they don't understand, simply because they see you moving every 6 months and they think that's a sign of instability, which of course it's not, right? And so this instability, if that's the right word, that confuses the credit agencies, it may result in lower credit scores. We care about the credit scores because credit scores dictate or correlate with the interest rates that we pay on loans for cars, for houses, potentially credit cards as well. Credit scores can also influence whether or not we get a loan, regardless of the rate. Or maybe you've actually earned a low credit score. Maybe it's not the inconsistent residence and consumer behavior that you've had. Maybe it's you've actually missed some payments or borrowed more than you can handle. That's fine. Now's the time to begin improving the score. Now's the time to rectify that so your budget will not be held hostage by high interest rates in the future. The credit score ranges from about 350 to 850. The average in the US is about 700. If yours is less than 700, begin making steps to improve it. And the number one thing you can do to improve your credit score is to make your payments on time. Or maybe that's the number two thing. The number one thing you can do is go check your credit report and make sure that everything is accurate. Make sure the story being told by your credit report. Credit report's like a resume, credit resume, whereas the credit score is a one number based on that resume. And so make sure your credit report, the story that's being told, is legitimate story of your consumer and borrower behavior. And you can actually contact the credit reporting agencies, TransUnion, Equifax, and make sure that they correct any inaccurate information that's in your credit report. Most of the time they will. Sometimes they might not. They might push back. But make sure your credit report tells a story of your consumer and borrower behavior that you want or you need to be told. If you make payments on time, regardless of the story that's being told, your score will improve naturally. It may be slow, but the key to improving your credit score is making payments on time. Throughout all of this, be patient, do your research, all the benefits you have, all the benefits you have earned, they do come with a small cost, and many of the people I've talked to would say it's not a small cost, but it can be quite frustrating. There can be enormous paperwork and enormous bureaucracy with all of this. Trying to figure out who do you talk to, what information do you need to provide, what is provided by the government, what is not. It can be extremely frustrating to navigate this system that is either not designed for the complexity that we have with our Veterans Affairs, or is not designed to interact with financial markets or consumer markets the way we need them to today. Let's just assume that this bureaucracy is one, due to the complexity, or two, to protect you from frauds. Let's not assume there's anything nefarious about it, or overly political. Let's just assume the bureaucracy in place to protect you. Appreciate that, respect that, take your time, be patient, and be diligent. Some ways the benefits and the information is going to be handed to you. In many other ways, you have to do a heck of a lot of work to get things taken care of. And if you think about who you're dealing with on the other side, who is working at these agencies, sometimes it'll be other veterans, sometimes it'll be active duty military. Sometimes it just may be civilians who got the job because it pays well and don't have the vested interests in the mission and the purpose that you do. So not their fault. Just be patient, have some leniency, lots of patience, and take your time. And eventually, most of these things will get taken care of. Earlier, I mentioned that healthcare may not be enough. Retirement may not be enough either. And you're going to have some unique benefits that most civilians do not, including probably a pension, a guaranteed benefit. These payments can be relatively low. And so your guaranteed benefit might be $1,000 a month for the rest of your life. It's great that it's the rest of your life, but $1,000 may not be enough to support your family and your lifestyle. And so consider saving for retirement on your own. If you have the means, you should be able to contribute to a tax-preferred thrift savings plan, which is like a 401k and can be offered through the Veterans Administration, or you can certainly have an individual retirement account or a Roth IRA on your own. Again, each of those, individual retirement account, an IRA or a Roth IRA, you can set up in 10 or 15 minutes through any number of different brokerage firms, and you can contribute $65 a year to either of those. You can invest in a variety of different investments, and by that variety, I mean almost all available financial securities you can invest in. And the real benefit of this is you get tax preferences, tax benefits by investing in tax-preferred retirement accounts, so that when you do retire and you take out the cash to support your lifestyle, you are not taxed as heavily as you would otherwise. And it's obviously, if you work for a firm that provides a private company-sponsored retirement account, try to take advantage of that. I've heard too many stories of veterans assuming that the government benefits are going to be enough to support them through retirement, and that not being the case. And if you can avoid working when you're in your 60s and 70s, unless you want to, I think we'd all like for you to have that option. But that option may come from you saving on your own a little bit. Number 9 is a two-parter or two-pager. Understand your tax responsibilities and obligations. And in most of my financial planning sessions, I tell people that most of us have 5 to 10 tax issues that we need to be aware of, from deductions to credits to business income. Most of us have 5 to 10 tax issues that we really need to be aware of. You may have 20 or 30. As veterans, you have unique income sources. You may have unique expenses, unique reporting responsibilities. Your tax responsibilities will be more complex, most likely. Not necessarily better, not necessarily worse. The tax, for the most part, probably you're going to be paying a lower tax rate, but the tax reporting responsibilities are going to be higher in order to get that lower tax rate. So what does this mean? Sorry for the small print. A lot of your income might be tax-free. You have to understand that. You have to report that at both the state and the federal levels, but not all of your income. It's possible that not all of your income is tax-free. You might have some income that is taxable. If you have a full-time salaried W-2, W-4 position, that is probably taxable, right? But a lot of your government benefits are going to be tax-free at the state and federal levels. You might even get property and vehicle tax benefits. The federal law allows that, but different states apply that differently. Retirement pay, retirement benefits is probably taxable. There are some streams of retirement income that will be non-taxable, but probably taxable at the federal level. States you live in and what they do. Disability benefit, probably tax-free. Life insurance proceeds are probably tax-free. Let me emphasize here, when I say probably tax-free, the probably refers to essentially the source of the income. If it's from the federal government, more likely than not, it will be tax-free. If you have aligned with a private provider, maybe transferred your benefits from the government to a private financial institution, or if you've consolidated loans or consolidated policies with private providers, the private provider plans may not be tax-free. Government plans should be tax-free. Private company, private provider plans might not be. And so just in 2 minutes of talking about this, I've used the words probably and might a lot. And that's just because this gets complex very quickly. Lots of different unique benefits. We have 50 states. We have both federal and private benefits. And there's, as I said earlier, there's different categories and classifications, how long you served, the branch you served in. Tax rules are going to be different from active duty. So if you felt comfortable with the tax rules when you were active duty, they're probably different now. Complex. It gets very complex very quickly. And while I recommended spending maybe a little time with a lawyer earlier to set up your will, spending a couple $100, I don't know what it would cost. You can find some nonprofits that'll do this, work with you on this for free. You can find some local veteran professional aligned accountants, spend a couple hours with them and really understand, to explain your situation to them and understand what your benefits and responsibilities are. And I want to emphasize responsibilities because we all have an obligation to report all of our income. And we have to report all of our tax benefits too, whether that's a credit or deduction or whatever. And I would hate for you to be caught up in an IRS tax audit complication because you didn't report. Right? Reporting is something that should be straightforward for all of us, but it'll be less straightforward for you if your situation is far more complex than traditional civilians. So spend a few hours with a tax accountant to get familiar with what your responsibilities, benefits, and tax obligations are. Well, finally, I've got 2 more. I promised you 10, I'm giving you 11. And the last 2 are more kind of Oprah Winfrey, Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, take charge of your life kind of tips. Never stop investing in yourself. You have access to education benefits, use them. You have access to discounted home and business loans, use them. When you were active duty, the military invested in you, you invested in yourself, you invested in your peers to serve the military's needs, purposes. You made our country better. And the military probably made you better in some ways. Now that you're a veteran, don't let that process stop. You may not have the support system of the military that's investing in you in the same way it used to be or was when you're active duty, but don't let that investing stop. Keep working. You're going to live a long and healthy and prosperous life, but keep investing in your stuff to make sure that prosperous really does happen and it happens the way you want it to. And so the investment opportunities, whether the investment opportunities are financial or educational or home, otherwise, you have to go find them. You have to go get them. And so don't assume come knock on your door because you have to go get them. But you are the best of the best. And if you continue investing in yourself, your post-military, your post-active duty life can be just as good and better in the same way that you made our country better during your active service. So never stop investing in yourself. And number 11, the peers, the bonus tip, never stop investing in your peers too. Never lose connections with your military. Few people have deeper connections, more shared experience than veterans. Your military sisters and brothers have been through what you've been through in different ways, maybe, but in ways that civilians like myself can't understand. And so keep connected with them. Don't become isolated. You're willing to do just about anything for them during active duty. Keep that love, keep those relationships going. Now that you're a veteran, use them for your life support system. Should you ever need it for relationships, use them for financial planning support system. I've tried to give you some advice here today. Your peers, your fellow veterans, they can probably give you 100 times more tips than I can. And whether that's navigating the process or financial institutions to talk to, use them for financial planning support. And as always, as ever, use them for friendship. In the work that I've done in financial planning, I've never, ever met a more tight-knit, impressive community than our veterans. And as I said, there's just something special about being a veteran that I will never understand. You have a unique bond, you have unique connections, use them and leverage them to navigate the rest of your life. So 3 final pieces of advice, sum it all up. Do your research. Most other people are not going to do it for you. You have to do it yourself. Protect yourself, your family, your benefits, because scam artists would love to take away what you have. And never stop growing, advancing, and investing in yourself. You know how to do this better than anyone else. How to invest and grow. Don't let that stop now. Keep doing it. Might be a little more difficult. You have to figure it out in different ways, but don't stop. What we all want is to achieve some level of wealth that starts with savings, that starts with behavior, values, and changes. Once we save, we can invest, we can own some things, we can own our future. And that leads to some idea of wealth. But it's not linear. It's always a process. We set our goals. We try to create a plan. We execute our plan. And then we get thrown off, either because of COVID or some other external event, or because we make mistakes. Don't beat yourself up, just correct. Set goals, analyze reality, create a plan, execute your plan, track your progress, and adjust your plan. Continually adjust your progress, adjust your plan. And as I conclude, wanted to throw a few quotes at you. Goal without a plan is just a dream. Wealth is largely a result of habit. Takes as much energy to plan as it does to wish. The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is mere tenacity. And I use this in financial wellness, and I think it all applies to veterans. That final one, the rest, the most difficult thing is decision to act. That's probably pretty easy for veterans, and then let the tenacity take care of itself. You cannot escape the responsibility tomorrow by avoiding it today. So take the bull by the horns, get on it, begin taking care of your financial future, and own your financial future in whatever you want. Create the future you want, the prosperity you want. Finally, thank you for your service. Thank you for your services. Thanks for being you. Thanks for making it great. And thank you for all that you've given back to me in these sessions and the knowledge. And I hope you'll continue to do that so that I can continue to do this work and make these sessions better in the future. That's it for today. We've got same time tomorrow, July 19th, with 3 p.m. Central Time. We'll talk about what to do when retirement is close, when you're 5 to 7 years out. It's tangible, it's visceral, but it's not imminent. And so what do you do? And so we'll walk through a checklist there and some things you can kind of still control when you have enough time before you actually make that leap into retirement. Again, I'm Brian Bolton, finance professor at UL Lafayette. Feel free to reach out to me at brian.bolton@louisiana.edu if you have questions, comments, thoughts, suggestions for how to make this better in the future. Thank you all. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop recording.